Welcome, I'm Joyce Tseng, and here's what happened this week. Taiwan and China launched a joint rescue operation in the seas near the outlying Kinmen Islands. It came 1 month since 2 Chinese fishers died in an incident with the Taiwanese Coast Guard. Rick Lowert was in Kinmen with this report.
A rare sight, Chinese and Taiwanese boats working together, looking for survivors after a Chinese fishing vessel capsized near Taiwan's Kinmen Islands, just kilometers off the Chinese coast in waters claimed by both countries.
本署立即成立应变中心，指挥金马棚分署、金门巡防区以及海巡队派遣4艘巡防艇前往救援。
It's exactly a month since another capsized Chinese boat near Kinmen sparked an angry back and forth between Taipei and Beijing, a spike in tensions as China increasingly asserts its claim of sovereignty over the island nation. That incident involving Taiwan's Coast Guard left 2 Chinese nationals dead. Taipei says it was enforcing the law when the accident occurred. Beijing says Taiwan's government is to blame. These islands, closer to China than to Taiwan's capital, still bear the scars of previous conflicts between Taipei and Beijing. But Kinmen's proximity to the Chinese coast mean that some of Taiwan's strongest economic and personal ties are here. There's a strong desire among Kinmen's residents for an amicable relationship with China. Today's incident comes as a reminder that for all the rhetoric, Taiwan and China still share close ties in many areas, not just tightly intertwined economies. There's been more than 100 incidents of the 2 countries working together to save people at sea in the last 3 years.
完全一个人道方面一个处理，我们能够配合协助了，哪怕把这个捞上来以后，该要后续处理的，我们绝对是做人道方面的工作。
The search operation to bring everyone out of these waters continues here in one of the most politically sensitive parts of the world. A month since cross-strait ties faced a fresh threat. Signs today on these small islands of both sides willing to pull back from the brink. Justin Wu, Peachy Zhuang and Rick Lowert in Kinmen for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Biden has submitted his request for next year's defense budget, including hundreds of millions of dollars for Taiwan. For more on the military aid, reporter Chris Gorin spoke with defense researcher William Zedong.
So, in its new budget request, the Biden administration has asked for $850 billion US dollars. Out of that, Taiwan will receive $100 million in military aid. But Biden has also requested another $500 million to replace the US's own stocks that are being transferred to Taiwan. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot compared to the nearly $20 billion in backlog deliveries that Taiwan is still waiting for. So, big picture, is this new $600 million a lot for the U.S. to spend on Taiwan?
Yes, the amount, I think the most important is just show the signs, the American determination to help Taiwan and try to, to send a signal to China and don't to do that. And I think in put in practice, as I mentioned, it will mainly, I think, the focus about create anti-access and area denial, or we call the A2AD's capability Taiwan, and to build out Taiwan's the military resilience.
Do you feel that the money coming from the White House is enough to meet Taiwan's defense needs?
I think this was just in the beginning, and if really there have a contingency happen or situation escalated, and I think American will be increased this kind of the military assistance very dramatically. So I think don't just be missed by it's a small amount. It's just the beginning. I would see this as a very important sign.
That was Chris Gorin speaking with defense researcher William Zedong. The Taiwan Strait is one of the busiest transport channels in the world. That's why many countries are concerned about a potential conflict there. Jaime Ocon explains what would happen if China attempted a blockade of Taiwan.
Here in the southern city of Kaohsiung lies Taiwan's biggest harbor. More than 9 million shipping containers pass through here every year, making it a vital economic hub for both Taiwan and Asia as a whole. That's why many countries in the region are concerned about the growing number of Chinese warships operating around Taiwan. Their presence is seen as China threatening to invade Taiwan, which it claims as its own. But many analysts now say that China is more likely to use other means to take the country under its control.
By and large, the most likely scenario is what we described as a highly kinetic blockade. And that's where China starts that blockade with an opening salvo of missile strikes against assets in Taiwan.
That would entail China stopping all merchant ships from coming and going from the island, essentially squeezing Taiwan's resources and economy. A report by the China Power Project says a maritime blockade of Taiwan is more feasible for China than a full-scale invasion because it would be the least coercive way to achieve its goals. The report predicts Taiwan would only be able to survive a blockade for 3 months. But even if Taiwan was able to hold out for longer, the economic effects of a blockade would be devastating for the rest of the world.
And we'll just assume it was 40% successful. So we're not talking 100%, 40% successful. That would be cost 2.8 trillion on the global economy, and that's the equivalent of about 2.8% of global GDP.
That means a successful blockade would cost the world around $7 trillion, nearly 4 times what was lost during the 2008 financial crisis. The Institute of Economics and Peace estimates that a maritime blockade of Taiwan would shrink China's economy by 7%, while Taiwan's economy would plummet by almost 40%. And given the strength of Taiwan's semiconductor industry, which supplies more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips, analysts say that any move that disrupts the tech supply chain would likely prompt the US and other countries to respond.
I think the important thing is awareness needs to be raised so that everyone's really clear on just what the consequences of a blockade would be.
And that's leading Taiwan's military to increase its combat readiness. Port cities like Kaohsiung are crucial for Taiwan's economy because the island nation relies heavily on imports to sustain its economy. And that's why the military is doubling down and deploying some of the country's most advanced systems to protect these areas. Defending key infrastructure is becoming a top priority for the military, which is conducting several coastal defense drills near ports and major cities. It's also deploying more anti-ship missiles around the country with the goal of using this kind of precision-guided ammunition to defend against enemy warships.
精准的投射能力以及快速的机动能力，正好符合我海军水面作战机动速决、集中火力的作战原则，有效地将敌人牵起于海上。
While there are no signs of any imminent military action from China, much of the world is hoping that Taiwan's defense is strong enough to deter Beijing, since any disruption of trade here could see an unprecedented impact on the world's economy. Howard Zhang, Annie Xue, Scott Huang, and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
Taipei and New Taipei are set to tighten the monitoring of nannies and the groups that hire them. That's after an infant died after being placed with an abusive caregiver, John Van Trieste reports.
It's been 3 months since a 1-year-old boy called Kai Kai, who was set to be put up for adoption, died from abuse by his nanny. But shock over his death isn't going away. The NGO handling his adoption is facing public anger. Its board members have held a press conference to apologize, and they hope to clear their organization of blame.
这个保姆之前跟我们契约照顾的前面的一个孩子还算正常，所以才会第二个社工人员没有办法有事先警觉，非常的内疚。
The organization says checkups in the first 3 months went smoothly, making the child's death in the 4th month a surprise. But the facts of the case are still in dispute. In addition to the nanny, a social worker is facing charges of falsifying documents and negligent homicide. The boy's family says the social worker brushed aside photos showing bruises on his head and missing teeth, with the social worker reporting that he had fallen in the park and ground his teeth too much. And the organization's response to the case, that it is only responsible for adoptions and not managing caregivers, has upset some people, including politicians.
这个说法我们没有办法接受，把安置的责任转介给本案失联的保姆，这个保姆是由他们来选择的，责任是无法免除的。尤其在这个需要做定期的访视过程当中，他们做了没有？
Taipei Mayor Jiang Wan-an has weighed in on Facebook, saying the city should check up on children under nannies' care at least 6 times a year. Already, it seems the city government is planning to go even further.
委管办理收出养的单位应该要去强化它的访视的一个频率我们建议是1个月至少2次。那至于保姆端的一个县市的主管机关，原来每3个月1次的一个访视，我们会增加为每个月至少1次。
Similar rule changes are in the works in neighboring New Taipei as well.
社会局和社福中心将全力陪伴家属，提供所需的协助。针对社会局服务中的儿童，将会增加访视频率。
When this will start and what it means for social workers is unclear. But 3 months after a death that shocked Taiwan, change in some form is coming. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
3 Taiwan nationals have been rescued from a human trafficking operation in the Philippines. Local authorities raided an offshore gambling company in the northern island of Luzon. The 3 Taiwanese were among 800 locals trafficked and forced to work in online scams. Philippine authorities were alerted when a victim escaped and reported the operation to nearby police. Scam operations are a growing problem in Southeast Asia. Hundreds of Taiwanese were lured to Cambodia in the last few years with fake job offers, but were forced to work in fraud schemes after they arrived. A fire department in central Taiwan is combining artificial intelligence and drones to prevent fires ahead of one of Taiwan's largest holidays. Eric Gao has more.
In just seconds, this drone uses artificial intelligence to zoom in on and identify a group of people lighting a fire. The fire department in the central city of Taichung is practicing how to use drones equipped with advanced cameras to monitor certain areas.
今天用的这一台那个无人机啊，它就可以用长效距离的定焦镜，那个放大距离来到20-30倍，然后就可以锁定那个疑似嫌疑犯。
The use of drones is part of a push by firefighters to prevent disasters ahead of the Tomb Sweeping Festival in April. It's one of Taiwan's largest holidays. Families honor their ancestors by cleaning their graves and making offerings. But people burning incense or offerings often cause fires around the holiday.
很快速的蔓延它的燃烧范围，那恐怕会危及到其他的这个住家或者是其他的这个建筑物。
Speaking to TaiwanPlus about privacy concerns, the fire department says the drone's AI can recognize objects and people as it looks for signs of fire, but does not identify individuals. The drones can record suspected illegal activity from high above with the goal of preventing wildfires. This unmanned aircraft can also automatically track moving objects, helping firefighters monitor changing situations.
例如是车子、人，进行一个框框的锁定。那这些人或车，它移动的时候呢，我们的飞机就会跟着自动转动，跟着自动长焦、轮in、轮 out， 然后做这个长距离的追踪。
Preventing fires doesn't conflict with honoring one's ancestors, and with a little help from AI, everyone in Taichung can have a safer tomb sweeping festival. Dolphin Chen, Jaime Yokon, and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
A girl in Taiwan has woken up after being in a coma for 3 weeks in what doctors are calling a medical miracle. The girl is the eldest of 3 elementary school-age siblings who were hit by a car while crossing the street in central Taiwan. She and her sister were hospitalized with serious injuries, while her younger brother was treated for minor wounds. Doctors are hopeful about the next step of treatment now that she's regained consciousness. Thank you for watching. Here's what happened. Finally today, take a look at this scene of hundreds of people in Buenos Aires paying tribute to the Japanese creator of Dragon Ball, Toriyama Akira, who died earlier this month. I'm Joyce Tseng. Take care and see you next week.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.